You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson, and I'm here on my show, Author to Author. Today, I am here with Robert Kurland, and he's written a very interesting book, A Science Primer for the Faithful. And as soon as I heard the title, I said, oh, excellent. That's exactly what we need. So I'm glad he's written this. How are you today, Bob?
Well, as you see, for 92.5, I am doing pretty well.
Wow, are you really 92 years old?
I'm 92.5. Right.
That's great. Good. God bless you. So would you like to start us with a prayer?
Yeah. Let me see. Very often, let me sort of adapt. I'm not good extemporaneously, but let me start with a prayer that I use before I begin writing.
Mm-hmm.
Dear Lord, and I'll use the plural for the first person.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know your will. Give us the power to do your will. Give us insight. Give us charity. If we have critics, let us be charitable to them. Let us learn from them. Let us spread the word, please, dear Lord, that you have made this universe, that it is beautiful, that the works of your hands show your glory. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. That's a nice prayer.
Okay, well, that or variations of it is what you try to start off with, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And you use that before you write, you said?
Before I go to write. Now, sometimes if I'm just going back and forth, I don't get up from the computer and I get down. I don't do it each time. Yeah. But before I begin something, I try to do something like that in my mind.
Good. Mm-hmm. Good. Mm-hmm. So I assume, since you're writing on science, that you must be a scientist?
I got my BS in way long time ago, 1951.
Oh, I was
from Caltech, chemistry with honor. I got my PhD. I got my MA in physics from Harvard in 1953. PhD in chemical physics from Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
I spent academia, Carnegie Tech, Carnegie Mellon, State University of New York at Buffalo, and then I leapt out of the academic rat race, and I went and became a MRI physicist at Geisinger Medical Center in Danville. Mm-hmm. It's a tertiary care hospital in a rural environment. You see behind me 4.5 acres, which I would never have been able to get anywhere else but in Danville at a price that I could afford. So it was a real idyllic time, 10 years doing MRI. I helped install their MRI in 1985. Had that 50% of the time off for research, went abroad a lot. Mm-hmm. And then in 1990, I was born, by the way, I was a secular agnostic Jew, okay? I wasn't a cradle Catholic. My wife is a cradle Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I became involved, and I don't want to go into that story, in 12-step programs. Mm-hmm. And the search for the higher power, I wanted to make more definite. So I read a book called Who Moved the Stone by Frank Morrison. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's about the reality of the resurrection. And it convinced me that the resurrection was real. And if it was real, then one should believe the other things in the New Testament particularly that Christ handed off the keys to the kingdom to Peter. So I became a Catholic in 95, which was fortunate because this eliminates a certain amount of, say, domestic controversy, my wife being also Catholic. And I gradually became, let me see how to put this. What I was trying to do was to get away from the religion of scientism, that science explains everything there is to know about the world, and that anything else has to be judged by sort of arbitrary, aesthetic or utilitarians. I had to get away from that. I had to learn to believe in miracles. For example, during the catechesis in 95, I was 65 years old then, and I had a very hard time with the notion of transubstantiation. You know, this cracker was really the body and blood of Christ. As a physicist, it just didn't seem to fit. But we were told as part of the catechesis program that we should attend a 40 hours retreat or liturgy. So I was sitting on the aisle and they carried the Monsignus in. They were playing Planga Lingua. And the Latin words, I don't remember them exactly, but I knew enough of my high school Latin to translate them. Where the senses are deficient, faith will supply the answer. And as I heard that, I knew instead of from here, from top down, and went down to here, I knew that little wafer was indeed the body and blood, soul and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. And that was the beginning of learning many things, that miracles were possible, that science wasn't everything. So these are sort of the messages that I'm trying to convey, that science is wonderful. It helps us to understand. You're familiar with Psalm 19, aren't you? The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows forth the work of his hand, day unto day. Well, this is my message. And what I want to show are several things that are not common knowledge. You know, people believe in science as essentially a religion, that it explains everything. And that can't be. It can't possibly be. There are so many things that can't be explained by science. So this is the message that I've been trying to convey in the book, and I'm trying to do it in sort of different parts. And the first part was about how science actually developed. And this was during the medieval period. And the Roman Catholic Church was, you could say, the midwife and nursemaid of science. And better people than I have done this. First, Pierre Duhem, French scientist, and then Stacy Trasancos wrote a great 2 books about it. And then I want to show how science works, the different methods, the deductive, the empirical, the various types of logic that are used. And then I want to show, well, the one thing I wanted to do was to use a historical approach. My wife did her graduate work in medieval history. And she has always told me that if you want to really understand something, you should know its history. And I think that's correct, because by doing that, people will see how things have changed, fundamental concepts have changed, how there have been times when 90% of the scientists believed one thing and it wasn't correct, like they believed in the ether. And so I've tried to take a historical approach and with examples and show how science works, how theories change. And I've tried at all points to be non-mathematical and qualitative, because I run things. What I tried to do originally after I was first converted in the first few years is to teach some adult education classes about this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in my parish and for the diocese. And these were, to put it charitably, not a great success. And I was trying to use a lot of math, and I was trying to be very scientific. And I'd gotten a teaching award in the 80s from SUNY at Buffalo, so I thought I was a real great teacher, and I wasn't. I was pretty poor. But so what I did was I tried to run a lot of this stuff by my wife, and she's sitting a little bit back, so I hope she isn't offended, a math phobe. She doesn't like mathematics. I tried to explain things without equations, qualitatively. And I tried to, the other thing is that we live in an age where there are so many things on YouTube that do explain these things. And you can't put them all in a book, but you can give links to them. You can show them, so that I decided it had to be an ebook. It had to be something where people could, click on a link and then see a pictorial representation besides what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's see, you want to hear some more about the book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there are a couple. So there's a section, as I say, about how how science developed up to Galileo in medieval times. And Galileo was the first to admit that he was the one who stood on the shoulders of, no, that was Newton, but that he did not invent science, despite common impression to that. Then I tried to say something about one of the very important there's a chapter on creatio ex nihilo and the Big Bang, about cosmology. And this is surely one of the things that a lot of, shall we say, materialistic scientists want to evade. They try to construct some theories that there was no moment of creation, because if there was, then what can you say but that something did that? It didn't happen spontaneously. So, and there's a chapter about evolution. And when people mention the word evolution, what they usually try to designate it as is the Darwinian model for evolution. And there's a lot more to it. There are many atheistic scientists and philosophers who think that Darwin had it all wrong, but that evolution, that is descent from some common organism or cell, did occur. But it isn't necessarily the survival of the fittest. There's something else. There's what's his name? Thomas Nagel, a philosopher, and he's written a book that says that what is missing in science and that is evident in evolution is a teleological principle. I guess this is one of Aquinas's, senior moment, not laws, but the way one of the causal relations. So that's missing. So that you have to invoke that. And I guess who was it? The Jesuit who got in trouble, Teilhard de Chardin, invoked that. And he had some crazy ideas, but some of it was, sort of interesting. So I have a chapter about evolution. And then I have another chapter about whether computers can have a soul.
Oh, yeah.
Do you follow Star Trek? You ever?
When I was young, yeah.
You remember the episode when they had Data on trial as to whether he was really conscious?
Yeah.
So this is sort of an example. And there are many, many philosophers who say that you can create consciousness and intelligence and a soul.
Oh, dear.
Via algorithms. And there are many, many others, not all of whom are believers or Christians who say you can't. So the issue is very much in doubt about that. I myself think that consciousness is a mystery, and there's a school called the Mysterians who hold that. But I don't think computers will ever have intelligence. It's an interesting science fiction bit, but I don't think it's something that will ever become real.
Oh, I think that would be awful. Can you imagine? I mean, that would just be torturing something to give it consciousness and it can not move or do anything. It's just, like a machine.
Even robots or androids.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a very interesting, I call it speculative fiction rather than science fiction. Our Lady of the Artilects, set 200 years in the future, in which so-called androids or robots or what they call synths have essentially what is super intelligence, and they see an apparition of Our Lady. And so there's a long novel there, a battle between the forces of evil. One of the synths is possessed by a demon. And, I won't go into it. I'm going to write a review of it, but, that it's a nice concept, but it's not real. It's not real.
I certainly hope not.
Yeah, no, that would be awful. And then I have a chapter about miracles and how their truth lies outside the domain of science. See, the problem with miracles is that they are not reproducible by their very nature. Okay. But there are lots of miracles. There are miracles, Eucharistic miracles. There are the miracles at Lourdes. There are that have plenty of factual evidence to them. So that one really has to be very stubborn and hard-headed to deny their existence. Yeah. And then finally, there is a chapter about recognizing fake science. And a lot of people, I don't want to get too political, but there are a lot of advocates of who promote things and say that it's you can't deny the science, but they are denying the science. In fact, the ones, for example, who deny that conception begins, that consciousness, life begins at conception, deny science, because there's no embryology shows there's no sharp division at any point that you can say something is not human or not conscious or does not have the potentiality for being human. So, it's all these choices are, well, I've spouted about that. So, I have not been a good self-promoter. I can quote what do you know who Father Robert Spitzer is?
I do.
Yeah, he has been kind enough. I belong to the his board. I'm on the academic board of fellows, and I've written blog pieces for his website. And he has given a nice foreword. And if you would allow me, I can quote from that.
Sure.
He says it much better than I can, but he's a very, very eloquent person. Okay, so I quote, this is from the foreword. Kurland begins by patiently explaining the reach and method of faith and revelation, as well as the method and limits of science, revealing why there is no inherent conflict between them. He observes that science can explore how the world works, but faith is the only way to answer the question of why we in the world exist. While science is limited to the explanation of the observable world, faith reaches out to the revelation of the Creator, which necessarily entails belief, not blind belief, but one that can in many ways be justified. So I was very grateful for that. And
yeah, I was just going to say that when you think of faith, I mean, it really is, it answers the question why there's anything. You know,
Yeah.
I've heard that said, and it's true. You know, I mean, why is there such a thing as space and time? You know, apart from all the things that are in it or changing in it, it's fascinating.
Yeah. No, there's Father. If you know who Father Stanley Jackie is,
Yes.
and he's put it very well. Science can't answer the question to be or not to be.
Right.
It can't answer the question of existence, why there is existence. Science can answer how questions, I think, but it can't answer why questions. It can't tell you why you find a piece of music, why Bach, there's one of the pieces, there's this, you can describe it mathematically. There's a series of descending scales, and then they change and they change and they change. Yeah, all this can be described, but you can't say why this is so great, why it's so beautiful.
I agree. Yeah, so it's interesting. You know, I'm very similar to you. I was originally a sociologist, which of course social science, but I'm very interested in science. You know, obviously I was looking at social structures, that sort of thing. But you know, there's just there's a beauty to these things, and it's not just the mind working or trying to see patterns. There's a beauty there that goes through time and through cultures. It's, you know. Well,
my spiritual director he's given me stuff, and let's see, what did he sent me to a great courses series on the medieval philosophers and Anselm. And also, I guess, Boetius. And I forget, I guess I'm a slow learner, but I forget who said it. But the idea is that God is beauty and beauty is truth. And maybe even Aquinas may have said it later on. I haven't got to that one yet. That the recognition of beauty is the idea that it is true, it is good. And that when we seek the beautiful, we are seeking God.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know who said that, but it is true, I think. There are various approaches to them, and I think that is one. You know, I mean, when you look, even if I believe that even an atheist, if they look out on a tremendous, landscape, there's a feeling, that you get. And I mean, for Christians, we know it's appreciation of the beauty of what God has created. But still, I think they get the same kind of feeling, although they don't know how to interpret it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember when I was, when I was very young and either agnostic or secular Jew, I would go to Griffith Planetarium in Los Angeles and look at the skies and I see the thing. I even tried to make my own reflecting telescope, not very well. And when I was older, second year in college, there's summer I spent out in Yosemite in the Forest Service working. And I'd lie down at the ground and look up at the great big trees, the sequoias, and my goodness, how great that is. And so we see these things, and you see this in the Psalms. The Psalms talk about it. And if people look at science and they reckon all the wonderful bits and pieces from cosmology down to molecular biology, the intricacies of which molecules are fitted together, in which the hydrogen bond is a zipper, not a glue or nailed, so that it enables react. All these wonderful things that are designed, the so-called anthropic coincidences, this Goldilocks universe that we live in. It's really, I don't see how anybody can see that and not just believe, maybe not in the Catholic Church, but in a creator and intelligence.
Yeah, I wonder about that myself. But of course, some people don't have the options to see those things depending on where they live or their social circumstances. And So that's very unfortunate.
Well, I wonder whether it's a matter of grace or not, because I read books by people who are obviously intelligent, sort of evangelical atheists who are trying to convince people, and they're certainly bright, they're knowledgeable, they know a lot. People like, Hawkins used to be an Episcopalian, but, before he switched to an atheist, and a lot of others, names sort of escape me at the moment, another senior moment. But, they're bright people, they're intelligent, but, you can be intelligent and yet not believe. And I think it is a matter of grace that we're lucky enough to get that grace and to accept it. And and there are lots of scientists who are Christian, who are even today, and certainly a couple 300 years ago, they all believed very strongly that it was God who did this.
Well, just the size, apart from the beauty and the order, the size is just amazing. When you think of, we're in one universe and there may be thousands of universes. It's like, who knows? It's the size is enormous. That's not something that would just happen. Yeah. I guess that size or volume, I don't know. I don't think it's area, but that's always fascinated me. I'm not, I don't know anything at all really about space, outer space. Not the space between, but it just seeing the order of it. It was a year ago Christmas, just before Christmas, and you probably heard that there was, the two planets, I think it was Jupiter and Saturn, they actually think that might have been the star that the Magi and it was so miserably rainy up here in Vermont, snowy and icy and yucky. And my husband and I drove into the driveway, and just for a minute it cleared, and I looked up and I saw it, and I just felt like, it was a life-altering moment. Like the rain went away, and I looked up and I thought, I actually am seeing something the wise men saw. It was enough to make me cry, just to think of the wonderful sign that still comes, I don't know how often, not very, I guess, but it was like, it just was an incredible experience to me. My husband looked at me like I was weird, but
no,
but we've been together long enough that he knows I am weird. But it was just amazing. You could not possibly look up at the sky and see that and not think, gee, that's different,
That's the thing.
Yeah.
People looked up at the sky and tried to imagine it, and it's always been there that, and there's this realization that something must be up there.
Oh, yeah.
You have different images of what it is, but, it finally comes down to a matter of revelation that, there are the prophets that came, and then finally Jesus came, and, this was the message God sent.
We're lucky to be aware of that.
Yeah.
There are
I consider myself very lucky. It was, more or less, I came actually because I was a member of a 12-step program. I won't go into details about that. This was in the late 80s and 90s. And I don't know if you've heard the expression higher power. And
oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. And this always bothered me because it seemed so vague and nebulous and sort of a device that enabled people who didn't really believe in God. One person say, if you want to make the coffee pot on the meeting table, you're a higher power or whatever, or the people in the room. So this is the reason I started to read this book, Who Moved the Stone, and to try and find out what, real, and that was, I think, again, the Holy Spirit, grace coming in, prompting me, and you either accept this grace or you reject it.
Yeah.
We have that choice.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And so many reject it because they don't want to give up the way they live or the way they think. I don't know. Or maybe
peer pressure.
Yeah. It's
because I when I converted, I could imagine the people I'd known in graduate said, "Oh, Kurland has really gone around the bend." He's, And we had one guy in graduate school who was a confirmed Christian. And he was a really bright guy, and he was not a Catholic. He was a Protestant. Remarkable kid. He came from the slums of Chicago. Not black, but he was a slum kid.
Yeah.
And he finally, I guess he just did crack up, and he left graduate school. And that, in graduate school, the idea of anybody being religious, it would have been, this was the 50s, but, you were not, that was not the thing. You could be a churchgoer, but you certainly weren't religious.
Yeah, it was the same in 85. I graduated with my PhD in 1985 in a sociology department. And I mean, it was, there was a lot of Marxism there. And I mean, people would actually refer to it as their Bible, it was like, man, I don't know. It's scary. But, I think that's one of the problems with the academic world is that people think they're too smart to believe in something that they cannot get data on.
Well, this is the thing. Some people, and as I said, there are a lot of scientists who are current scientists who much better, who are major league players. I put myself as maybe AAA or AA, but, major league players who are believers. I can think of Charlie Towns, Nobel Prize winners. In fact, the Penzias, who was co-discoverer of the background radiation. Lots of them, mostly physicists. And I'm surprised because I would have thought that molecular biologists would be in on this too, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's interesting because, you can be so smart, so intelligent in an area, and maybe it just blinds you to something, or for some people, it opens their eyes.
Well, this is one of the things I'm trying to show with the book that, there are all sorts of intellectual enterprises like art, and music, and literature, and science is like this. It's God gave us intelligence to understand the world around us, to make beautiful things, to appreciate beauty. And this is just one more device, but it isn't the end all and be all. It's a way of, but there are so many things that science doesn't explain that we can't depend on the scientific method to explain all that we need to know.
You're right. Well, that's quite a book you got there.
Well, I have been trying to do it, and nothing goes. And there's still things I want to change and improve upon. I've never really so there hopefully will be second editions or third editions that I can improve it and make it better. But that's the message I'm trying to carry.
That's wonderful. It really is. It's like, I don't think that there's necessarily that contradiction between the two, the conflict between the two that so many see. And, we need people that are both. They're religious and scientists. That enables people to see that this is, if you can believe and study science, then clearly there's not a contradiction that I think people have been just fed that anyway.
Yeah. But the thing that I think is problem with the educational system as science is taught is that kids are taught problems. They're taught pulley problems. They're taught when two trains leave and they meet. This is a bit noir for my wife, who really, they're taught, in chemistry, balancing equation, but they aren't taught anything about the history of science and how science works.
Yeah.
And this is what most of them need to know.
Yes.
And it's really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yep. That, and also some of the biographies of the people who have been in the history of science and were believers, So.
Well, there's still some around. It's
Mm-hmm.
maybe not as high a proportion as it used to be, say 100 or 200 years ago, but there's still a lot of, eminent scientists who are strong believers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I even wrote an article about this, or a blog piece. So it's on Father Spitzer's Magis site.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, people can learn over time. They run into something like that, or they hear an interview like this and they might go looking it up.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Was there anything else that you wanted to tell us about the book?
Well, no, other than it is non-mathematical. It is covering 5 different points. I think I mentioned most of them. And the fact that Father Spitzer gave it a sterling review encourages me that it does perhaps will be useful, because he's writing stuff also on the same thing.
Good. Mm-hmm.
And he's well known for the books he has written and his talks and everything.
Yeah. So, it's interesting stuff.
You said you would like me to give a final prayer.
Yes, please. Would you?
Okay. Let's see. I'll have to think of one. Lord, I think it'll be a gratitude prayer.
Okay.
Thank you for all the gifts you've given us. Thank you for the gift of creation. Thank you for the gift of understanding creation and understanding your work. Help us to know the love you have for us by the world you have created, and to believe in that love despite the temporary mishaps and bad things that may occur. Help us to share in this, and thank you for sending your Son as the Word, the author of creation, in human form. In the name of the Father and Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up where knowledge takes flight.